Friends, gather round because today we're diving into the dumpster fire that is the US federal government. Specifically, the mass layoffs sweeping through its ranks. It's like a reality show where the prize is unemployment, and the host is a sentient spray tan with anger issues. The Trump administration, in its infinite wisdom, has decided to tackle the federal deficit by firing a bunch of people. And not just anyone. They're going after the newbies, the probationary workers who haven't even had a chance to fully stock their desk drawers with government-issued pens. It's like getting kicked out of a timeshare presentation for not buying a timeshare in the first 5 minutes. Now you might be wondering, John, how many people are we talking about? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because the numbers are about as clear as Ted Cruz's conscience after a snowstorm. While the exact figure is murky, we know that as of last year, over 220,000 federal employees had less than a year of experience. That's a lot of folks who are about to be handed their pink slips in a pamphlet titled, "So, You've Been Laid Off During a Global Pandemic." Now what? The administration is calling for large-scale reductions in force, which, let's be honest, sounds like something out of a dystopian novel where robots have taken over the Department of Motor Vehicles. Some agencies, like the good folks over at the National Science Foundation and Housing and Urban Development, have been warned to brace themselves for potential workforce reductions of up to 50%. That's right, folks. They're cutting science and housing in the middle of a housing crisis and a global pandemic. It's like using a Band-Aid to fix a sinkhole. But wait, there's more. This wouldn't be a proper government cluster of *CK without a healthy dose of Silicon Valley hubris thrown in for good measure. Enter Elon Musk, the man who wants to send us to Mars but can't seem to build a car that doesn't burst into flames. Trump, in his infinite lack of judgment, has put Musk in charge of the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE for short. Yes, you heard that right, DOGE. It's like they named a government agency after a meme. Musk, never one to shy away from a bad idea, has been given broad authority to slash government spending. This is a man who once tweeted that he was going to buy Twitter and then spent months trying to back out of the deal. Now, he's been unleashed on the federal government with a mandate to eliminate entire agencies. To make matters worse, Musk has also managed to insert himself into the hiring process, requiring his approval for most new hires. It's like trying to get a job at Google, but the hiring manager is a billionaire who spends his days launching rockets into space and tweeting about how much he hates pronouns. So, who's feeling the brunt of these layoffs? Well, it's a veritable who's who of government agencies that actually do important things. The Office of Personnel Management, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Education, they're all getting hit. The Department of Education alone has already laid off at least 39 employees, including civil rights workers, special education specialists, and student aid officials. That's right, folks. They're firing the people who help protect students' rights, support students with disabilities, and make sure students can afford to go to college. It's like canceling your car insurance right before driving into a hurricane. And it's not just the Department of Education. The Department of Veterans Affairs has also gotten in on the fun, laying off over 1,000 probationary workers in non-mission critical roles. This is supposed to save a whopping $98 million annually, which, let's be honest, is a rounding error in the federal budget. But hey, at least they're not cutting funding for tanks, right? But the real kicker is that these layoffs are actually going to make it harder for the VA to do its job. See, a lot of those probationary workers were involved in research on things like cancer treatment, opioid addiction, prosthetics, and burn pit exposure. Important stuff that veterans actually need. It's like firing all the chefs at a restaurant and then being surprised when the customers start complaining about the food. Now, you might be thinking, John, surely someone has pointed out that this is a terrible idea, right? Well, you'd be right. The American Federation of Government Employees, which represents federal workers, has called these layoffs a politically driven mass firing spree. And they're not wrong. This isn't about efficiency or reducing the deficit. This is about scoring political points and punishing people who work for the government. It's about shrinking the size of government so small it can drown in a bathtub. And the worst part is, it's not even going to work. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that even if you fired every single civilian federal worker outside of defense, Homeland Security, and Veterans Affairs, the deficit would still be over $1 trillion. That's because the real drivers of the deficit are things like Social Security and Medicare, which, spoiler alert, are only going to get more expensive as the baby boomer generation continues to age. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, for one, it's clear that the Trump administration's approach to government is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. They're firing people who are actually doing important work under the guise of efficiency, while simultaneously making it harder for the government to function. It's a recipe for disaster, and the American people are the ones who are going to be left holding the bag. Thank you for visiting the Today Hot Reels channel. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X and Pinterest.